The date was March 18, 1990. It was very early in the morning. The clock on a nearby church tower might have shown 1:24 a.m. Boston, a city usually bustling with life, was quiet. Most of its residents were asleep, unaware of the drama about to unfold. The previous day, St. Patrick's Day celebrations had filled the streets with noise and revelry. Now an almost eerie calm had settled over the Fenway neighborhood. The air was cool, typical for a late New England winter transitioning into spring. The city lights cast long shadows, painting the empty streets with an orange glow. Only the occasional passing car disturbed the profound stillness that had enveloped the urban landscape, a silence that was a prelude to an audacious crime. Looming in this quietude was the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. It stood like a Venetian palace transplanted to American soil. Its darkened windows gave no hint of the priceless treasures held within its walls. The museum, a deeply personal creation of its founder, was more than just a building. It was a work of art in itself. Its distinctive architecture, a four-story structure surrounding a magnificent glass-covered courtyard, made it a unique Boston landmark. On this particular night, it appeared secure, a silent sentinel guarding centuries of artistic achievement. The streets surrounding it were deserted, the festive spirit of the previous day long faded into the quiet hum of a city at rest, completely oblivious to the impending violation. The atmosphere around the museum was heavy with the kind of stillness that often precedes a storm. No one was walking their dog. No late-night revelers were heading home. The city seemed to be holding its breath. The museum itself, with its imposing facade and intricate details, seemed almost to blend into the shadows, its presence both formidable and vulnerable. Its location, slightly removed from the city's most heavily trafficked areas, contributed to its isolation in these early morning hours. This quiet, this isolation, would soon prove to be an advantage for those with nefarious intentions, a perfect cover for an unprecedented act of cultural theft. Inside, the world was even more contained, more silent. The only sounds were the gentle hum of the climate control systems and the occasional creak of the old building settling. The security measures, considered adequate for their time, were in place. The city outside slept soundly, unaware that a significant piece of its cultural heritage was about to be ripped away. The darkness provided a cloak, the silence a shield, for what would become one of the most infamous art heists in history. The stage was meticulously set, not by design, but by the simple rhythm of a city at night, unaware of the audacity that the early hours of this specific day would bring. Within the museum's walls, a different kind of world existed. It was a world filled with beauty, history, and immense value. Two security guards were on duty, tasked with protecting this precious collection. One of these guards, Rick Abbott, was a young man, perhaps not fully comprehending the weight of responsibility that rested on his shoulders. He was stationed at the security desk, a small island of light in the vast, darkened museum. The silence inside was profound, broken only by the rhythmic tick of a clock or the distant hum of machinery. The galleries filled with masterpieces were shrouded in darkness, their priceless contents waiting for the morning light and the arrival of visitors. The collection itself was legendary. It was the life's work of Isabella Stewart Gardner, a woman of extraordinary vision and wealth. She had amassed a diverse array of art spanning centuries and cultures. There were paintings by Rembrandt, Vermeer, Manet, and Degas. There were tapestries, sculptures, manuscripts, and decorative arts. Each piece had been personally chosen by Isabella, each placed with careful consideration within the museum she designed. The value was not just monetary, though that was staggering. It was historical, cultural, and deeply personal. These were not just objects, they were pieces of human history, expressions of genius, and they were all under the care of just two individuals during the quietest hours. The atmosphere was one of hushed reverence, even in the dead of night. The artworks, though unseen in the darkness, exuded a powerful presence. The Dutch Room, for instance, held some of the museum's most prized possessions, including Vermeer's The Concert and Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee. These were irreplaceable masterpieces, the kind that art lovers travel the world to see. The responsibility of safeguarding such treasures was immense. The stillness of the museum, usually a comfort, might have felt a little unsettling to a lone guard surrounded by such immense worth, a silent testament to human creativity and the passage of time. The museum was a labyrinth of galleries, each with its own distinct character, reflecting Isabella's eclectic tastes. The dim emergency lights cast long, eerie shadows, transforming familiar spaces into something more mysterious. The main courtyard, usually vibrant with flowers and bathed in natural light, was now a shadowy, silent space. The guards' routine was likely monotonous. Patrol, check doors, monitor cameras. They were the first line of defense against any threat, but on this particular night, the threat would be far beyond what they could have anticipated. They were the guardians of a palace filled with silent, priceless splendor, unaware of the storm about to break. The deceptive calm was shattered at precisely 1:24 a.m. A buzzer sounded at the museum's side entrance on Palace Road. One of the guards, Rick Abbott, saw two men on the security camera. They were dressed as police officers. This was unusual but perhaps not immediately alarming. The previous day's St. Patrick's Day celebrations had seen a heavy police presence in the city. The men at the door claimed they were responding to a disturbance call. They told Abbott they needed to come inside. This claim, though a complete fabrication, sounded plausible enough in the early hours after a major citywide event. Abbott, despite museum protocol forbidding the opening of doors for anyone, made a fateful decision. He buzzed them in. Perhaps he was young, perhaps a little intimidated by the uniforms, or perhaps he genuinely believed their story. The two men, who were not police officers at all but audacious thieves, entered the museum. They were convincing in their roles. They asked Abbott to step away from the security desk, telling him he looked familiar and that there might be a warrant out for his arrest. This clever ruse was designed to isolate him and gain control of the situation quickly and without a struggle. Once Abbott was away from the desk and its panic button, the thieves' demeanor changed. They swiftly subdued him. They told him not to cause them any trouble. He was handcuffed. The second guard, who came to investigate the commotion, was also quickly overpowered and handcuffed. The thieves were efficient and seemed to know what they were doing. They used duct tape to cover the guards' eyes and mouths. They then led the bound guards down to the museum's basement. There they were secured to pipes, far from any chance of raising an alarm or interfering with the thieves' plans. The initial phase of the heist was executed with chilling precision. The entire process of gaining entry and neutralizing the guards took only a few minutes. The thieves were now in complete control of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. The priceless collection lay before them unprotected. The city outside remained oblivious, wrapped in its slumber. The guards, bound and helpless in the cold basement, could only wait and wonder what was happening upstairs. The deception had been successful. The doors to one of America's greatest treasure troves had been opened not by force but by a simple, audacious lie, and the trust that a police uniform typically inspires. The stage was now set for the plunder. With the guards secured, the thieves had the museum to themselves. They spent a total of 81 minutes inside. This was not a quick smash-and-grab operation. It was methodical, yet perplexing. They moved through the darkened galleries with a clear, if somewhat baffling, agenda. Their primary target was the Dutch room on the second floor. Here they committed their most devastating acts of theft. They crudely cut Rembrandt's Christ in the Storm on the Sea of Galilee and A Lady and Gentleman in Black from their frames. These were large canvases, and the act of removing them in such a rough manner showed a disregard for the artworks themselves. They also stole Vermeer's The Concert, one of only about 36 known paintings by the Dutch master, making its loss particularly catastrophic. Nearby, Govert Flink's landscape with an obelisk was taken. A small Rembrandt self-portrait etching, no bigger than a postage stamp, was also snatched from the side of a chest. The thieves seemed to know which rooms to target, but their choices within those rooms were sometimes odd. They spent considerable time and effort removing these specific pieces while ignoring other, equally valuable works nearby. This selectivity has puzzled investigators and art historians for decades. Their path of plunder continued. They also took 5 drawings by Edgar Degas from the Short Gallery. From the same room, they stole a finial in the shape of an eagle from the top of a Napoleonic flag. This bronze eagle was a heavy, somewhat awkward object to carry. In another seemingly bizarre move, they attempted to remove the entire Napoleonic flag, but apparently gave up, leaving it behind. They also stole an ancient Chinese bronze gu, a ritual beaker dating back to the Shang dynasty. This selection of objects, priceless paintings, small drawings, a bronze eagle, and an ancient Chinese artifact, presented a strange and eclectic mix, suggesting a peculiar set of motives, or perhaps a shopping list compiled by someone with very specific, if unusual tastes. The thieves left a scene of shocking violation. Empty frames hung crookedly on the walls, stark white spaces where masterpieces once resided. This was a particularly poignant detail, as Isabella Stewart Gardner's will stipulated that if any part of the permanent collection was significantly altered, the entire museum and its contents were to be sold. The empty frames served as a constant, painful reminder of what was lost. After 81 minutes, their work complete, the two men wheeled their haul out of the museum in the early morning darkness, disappearing as mysteriously as they had arrived. To understand the magnitude of the Gardner heist, one must understand Isabella Stewart Gardner herself. She was a remarkable woman, an eccentric and flamboyant figure in Boston society. Born in New York in 1840, she married John Jack Lowell Gardner Jr., a member of a prominent Boston family. After the tragic death of their young son, and following her doctor's advice to travel for her health and spirits, Isabella developed a passion for collecting art. She traveled extensively, particularly in Europe and Asia, with her husband, acquiring paintings, sculptures, tapestries, furniture, manuscripts, and architectural elements with a keen eye and an adventurous spirit. Her vision for the museum was deeply personal. She didn't just want to display art, she wanted to create an immersive experience, a place that would transport visitors to another time and place. After her husband's death in 1898, she dedicated herself to building the museum in Boston's Fenway neighborhood. She was intimately involved in every aspect of its design and construction, modeling it after a 15th-century Venetian palace. She personally arranged the galleries, mixing masterpieces with everyday objects, creating rooms that were artworks in themselves. The museum, which she named Fenway Court, opened to the public in 1903, reflecting her unique taste and her desire to share her collection for the education and enjoyment of the public forever. Isabella's will contained very specific and stringent conditions. She stipulated that the arrangement of her collection must remain permanently unchanged. Nothing could be added, sold, or even moved from its designated spot within the museum. If these conditions were violated, her will dictated that the entire collection, along with the museum building itself, was to be sold at auction in Paris, with the proceeds going to Harvard University. This ironclad decree was intended to preserve her artistic vision precisely as she had left it. It also meant that the empty spaces left by the stolen artworks could not be filled, serving as a perpetual, haunting reminder of the loss. The thieves, whether they knew the full extent of her will or not, effectively froze parts of the museum in a state of perpetual incompleteness. The empty frames became powerful symbols of the violation, not just of property, but of Isabella's carefully crafted legacy. Her dream was to create a lasting sanctuary for art, a place where future generations could experience beauty and inspiration. The heist was a brutal betrayal of that dream, an act that tore at the very fabric of her creation. The museum, bound by her wishes, continues to honor her vision, even in its wounded state, hoping for the return of its lost treasures. The discovery of the theft sent shockwaves through Boston and the art world. When the morning shift arrived at the museum, they found the building eerily quiet. It wasn't long before they discovered the bound guards in the basement, alive but shaken. The scene upstairs in the galleries was one of devastation. The Boston police were immediately called, and soon, the Federal Bureau of Investigation took the lead, as the transportation of stolen goods across state lines is a federal crime. The initial hours of the investigation were frantic, with investigators trying to piece together what had happened and who could be responsible for such an audacious act. The FBI, along with art recovery specialists, faced an incredibly complex case from the outset. There was little forensic evidence left behind by the thieves. They had worn gloves and their disguises had been effective. The guards, disoriented and having had their eyes covered for much of the ordeal, could offer only limited descriptions. The art world is a relatively small, interconnected community, but the stolen Gardner pieces seemed to vanish without a trace. Investigators explored numerous avenues. Was it an inside job? Was it sophisticated international art thieves? Was it local criminals who got lucky or were hired by a more knowledgeable collector? Over the years, many suspects and persons of interest emerged. Local Boston mob figures, particularly those associated with the Merlino gang, came under scrutiny. One prominent name was Carmelo Merlino, a Dorchester-based mafia capo. There were whispers that the art was stolen to be used as leverage for a deal, perhaps to get a fellow mobster out of jail. Another line of inquiry focused on Miles Connor Jr., a notorious art thief who had a history of audacious heists, though he was incarcerated at the time of the Gardner theft. He suggested he could help recover the art, but these leads eventually ran cold or proved to be misdirection. The case became a labyrinth of dead ends, false leads, and tantalizing rumors. Informants offered tips, often in exchange for leniency or reward money, but none led to the recovery of the art. The FBI chased leads across the country, and even internationally, from Boston to Philadelphia, Connecticut to France and Japan. They interviewed countless individuals, dug up backyards, and monitored communications, but the masterpieces remained elusive. The sheer value of the art, estimated at the time to be $200 million, and now over $500 million, made it too hot to handle for most legitimate dealers or collectors, suggesting it likely went deep into the criminal underworld, perhaps changing hands multiple times. The fate of the 13 stolen artworks from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum remains one of the art world's most tantalizing and frustrating mysteries. With no definitive recovery after more than 3 decades, theories abound, ranging from the plausible to the wildly speculative. One persistent theory suggests the art was stolen by, or on behalf of, a private collector, someone wealthy and unscrupulous enough to commission such a theft, intending to keep the masterpieces hidden away for their own private enjoyment. This doctor, no type figure, a shadowy connoisseur, is a common trope in art theft lore, but rarely proven true. Another prominent theory links the heist to organized crime, specifically the Irish Republican Army, or other paramilitary groups. The idea is that the art could have been stolen to fund their activities, or to be used as a bargaining chip in political negotiations. There were unconfirmed reports and rumors of sightings or offers related to the Gardner art in Ireland, but these leads, like so many others, never materialized into concrete evidence or recovery. The difficulty in selling such high-profile stolen art on the open market lends credence to the idea that it might be held by an organization that values it for reasons other than simple monetary gain, such as leverage. Many investigators believe the artworks were likely taken out of Massachusetts shortly after the theft and may have been moved multiple times since. Some speculate the pieces were hidden somewhere in the New England area, perhaps in Connecticut or Pennsylvania, areas where some of the key suspects had connections. There's also the grim possibility that some or all of the artworks have been destroyed, either accidentally due to improper storage or deliberately to eliminate evidence if the thieves felt cornered. The fragile nature of old master paintings means they require careful climate control, and without it, they could deteriorate rapidly, a heartbreaking thought for art lovers. The FBI has stated publicly that they believe they know the identities of the thieves who are now deceased. However, knowing who stole the art is different from knowing where the art is. The focus of the investigation has shifted over the years from catching the perpetrators to recovering the irreplaceable pieces. The trail has gone cold many times only to be reignited by a new tip or a fresh look at old evidence. Each new lead brings a flicker of hope, but so far, each has ultimately led back to the same frustrating uncertainty. The underworld is a place of whispers and shadows, and the Gardner art remains lost within its depths. Today, more than 34 years after the heist, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum still bears the visible scars of that fateful night. In accordance with Isabella's will, the empty frames from which the masterpieces were brutally cut still hang in their original positions in the Dutch room and the short gallery. These ghostly voids serve as a powerful and poignant memorial to the stolen art. They are a constant reminder of the cultural heritage that was lost, and a testament to the museum's unwavering commitment to Isabella's vision, even in the face of such a devastating violation. Visitors walk through the galleries, their gaze drawn to these stark absences, feeling the weight of what is missing. The museum continues to offer a substantial reward for information leading directly to the safe recovery of all 13 works. Initially set at $1 million, it was increased to $5 million in 1997, and then dramatically doubled to $10 million in 2017. This significant sum underscores the immense cultural value of the stolen pieces, and the museum's desperate hope for their return. Despite the passage of time and the deaths of key suspects, the authorities and the museum remain optimistic that the art still exists and could one day be found. The reward offer has a statute of limitations for prosecution attached for anyone who might come forward, encouraging cooperation. The investigation remains officially open, though leads have become increasingly scarce. The FBI periodically releases new information or appeals to the public, hoping to jog someone's memory or encourage someone with knowledge to finally come forward. The story of the Gardner heist has captivated the public imagination, inspiring books, documentaries, and countless articles. It is a tale of audacity, mystery, and profound loss. The museum itself has thrived despite the tragedy, continuing to welcome visitors and fulfill its mission of education and enjoyment, all while living with the constant reminder of the treasures that were taken from its walls. The enduring mystery of the Gardner heist is a complex tapestry woven from threads of criminal cunning, investigative frustration, and unwavering hope. Will Vermeer's The Concert ever be seen again? Will Rembrandt's Only Seascape, The Storm on the Sea of Galilee, reappear from the shadows? These questions hang heavy in the air, not just within the Gardner Museum, but across the global art community. The empty frames wait patiently, symbols of both a terrible loss and an enduring vigil, a silent plea for the return of these irreplaceable masterpieces to their rightful home, so that Isabella Stewart Gardner's magnificent legacy can once again be whole.